everybody. So, today we're going to be tying the Mickey Fin, a favorite pattern of mine, tied on a die Reiki size 2 number 710 streamer hook, 3XL. We're going to be using UTC 70 denier in black today. And for the first step, what we're going to be doing is we're going to start a little bit back of the eye of the hook and begin doing touching close and concise wraps backwards. I recommend using your tag end to actually consolidate them and keep them nice and smooth. Now, a little of a fun fact about the Mickey Fin is it was originally called the Langevine after Charles Langevin, its creator. Later on, it was picked up by an author named John Alden Knight, and he named it the Assassin. And then later on, even after that, a Canadian author named Greg Clark actually ended up comparing it to the deadliness of a Mickey Fin, which people stuck with as it almost sounded as if they were poisoning the water, and then fish were unable to resist this pattern. So, as we're rearing the bend of the hook right here, what we're going to do is we're going to take it right there, bring it forward just a little bit, then we're going to cut our tying thread real fast. And for this next step, we are going to be using ultra wire UTC silver, and I'm using a very thin variation of it. You're going to want to break off about 7 to 8 inches, just like that, and we're going to take and we're going to tie this in up to where we started our tie-ins, just like this. And we're going to want to keep these wraps as even as we possibly can and keep that wire in one place. Now we're taking it back to the bend of the hook again, just like that. Now we're going to take and put our wire off to the side for a second. And for my second part of this body, I'm actually using mylar tinsel in gold and silver. And the way I found it's best to tie this in, so we're actually going to take off a good amount. We want to be able to wrap this 2 to 3 times because we really want to make sure that this pattern is in there and is strong. So what we're going to do is we're going to break or cut off a good amount here. There we go. And when tying this in, what I recommend doing is tying it in gold side up. We're going to want silver on this, however, we are again going to tie it in gold side up. And I will demonstrate why we do that momentarily. Get some good wraps on there, bring it forward, cover that up, and begin doing wraps backwards, keeping them pretty even, trying to minimize the amount of unevenness we have to this. There we go. Just like that, we're going to bring it back to the exact same place that we brought back the wire. Now we're going to do wraps forward, bring it up to where we have a bare hook, just like that. And then we're going to, as we can see, you have the gold end, you're going to wrap it over like that, and it will switch over to the silver end. If you're using a full silver wire, it doesn't matter which way you tie it in, but if you are using gold and silver, it will help you with keeping it even and getting the side color you want. Now we're going to do flat wraps back towards the eye of the hook like this. There we go. And I like to do multiple passes on this, so I'll bring this up one, just like this, keeping it as tight as possible. There we go. And we're going to get up to where our thread is. And then a little tip for when you're doing more than one pass with this is actually taking your thread, getting it tied off almost like you're going to quit, and then going backwards because it will make it a ton easier if you end up slipping the thread and actually losing your grip on this tinsel, or the mylar rather. There we go. This body always looks extremely good. I always like it like this. You can use flat wrap tinsel such as comes on a card, but I've always preferred this pattern with a mylar body or a fine flat wire. There we go. Got some pretty good looking wraps in there. And these ones don't matter so much with getting them exactly even, everything like that. They will help you build a nice strong bottom for your remaining wraps to do over the top. However, once we get to right here, we're going to begin wrapping forwards again, and this is where it starts to really count where you're going to be placing your wraps, because you want to get that nice body style. bringing these forward, just like that. Keeping them as touching as we possibly can. I like to do 3 again, like I said, because it makes it have a little bit beefier of a body, and it also gives it the good durability. There we go. We're going to bring it forward just a little bit farther than we had before, just like that. There we go. We're going to tie right over the top of that. Switch hands. Very careful as to not let go of that. There we go. We're going to bring this back up, completely cover that, and then go back around the back one more time. Just like that, we have that tied off. Now for our next step, we're going to be using bucktail, yellow and red dyed, and I recommend that you actually use the top of the bucktail. Like this, as you can see. Get that little thread off there. As you can see, it's the finer tips, they're not as hollow, whereas on the back end, they're going to be more hollow, they're going to be something that's going to flare up when you actually do it. So what I've done is before the video I actually took and stacked some hair. And this is my hair stacker that I was actually using right here. And to stack hair, if you are new to it, what you're going to do is you're going to take and go like this. You're gonna smack it on the table and it will align all those tips. Now what we're going to do before we bring in that deer hair is we're actually going to wrap this counter of the way we wrapped it like this. So we wrapped it that way, so we're going to wrap it the opposite way to give it a counter wrap and to give it a little bit of strength when it's being fished. We're going to keep these pretty even, just as even as we can, just like that. Wrap it forward, and I like to bring it just a little bit farther ahead than it needs to be, just like that. Tie it there, and then tie behind just like that. Perfect. And that is anchored and will not come undone. And is actually adding a secondary layer of durability to our Mickey fin. And you're going to helicopter this off, or you can cut it off if you do have a pair of wire cutters or strong scissors. Then we're going to take some yellow bucktail. This is for yellow, red, yellow pattern. You can do a reverse, however. I like this one best. So as you can see, right here, we've actually got good looking stacked fibers. Now to measure this, what I like to do is I'll measure hook shank and then a little bit. So I want it to go out about the length from the point of the hook back. So I'm going to measure there and add about that much. There we go. Now what you're going to do is you're going to come up like this, come around this as to keep it all together, bring it back down, tie it in, and right here you're going to want to be very careful because one of the most important steps of this fly is actually the management on the head and the way the head's going to look. So here we go, we bring it back towards black, and just like that, we have the first part of our Mickey fin and our hair wing. Now we're going to cut this off at an angle. You can either do it like this, or you can come in from the top. I'm going to come in like this, just like that, cut it off at a good looking angle. And then we're going to wrap over the top of that so that we don't have any issues tying in our next step. Just like that. There we go. And then what you can do every other once in a while, you can actually bring it up to the top. And as you can see, we are dead center on that hook, which is good. There we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same with red bucktail. I have already stacked it, gotten it ready, have it right here. Now you can use UV bucktail, and something when you're tying this in as well, you want to make sure you can press it down so you can get the exact correct length. I'm going to switch hands like that, bring it up, around like that, and then tighten it down, just like that. There we go. And then what you can do is you can actually come back a little bit farther on this, just like that, and it'll compress it down, give you a good looking hair wing. And at the end, we can actually take and clean up these fibers that aren't working as well, but we're going to do a UV coat on the end for the head, which can set some of the fibers in the correct place. I'm going to cut this at an angle just like that. Make sure we have a good even set on there, just like that. So we've got it dead center on top of that yellow. We're going to bring up the tension on our bobbin. We're going to do wraps over the top of that, just like that. You don't have to cover it all up immediately, no worries. And then we're going to finish it off with a secondary part of yellow. just like this. You want to keep it about the same amount as the original yellow. As you can see, we do have original amount pretty well matched. And again, you're going to compress it down just like that. And right there, we have it pretty well matched. Switch hands. You're going to bring it here, come around the bottom, and then you're going to tighten it down just a little bit, and then bring it back around the top. And then you're going to want to really tighten it down, just like that. And this is the most important one that you're going to want to check, like you've been checking periodically. As you can see, we have a good-looking wing, really good-looking wing right here. However, we're going to switch it around, and we have a good-looking wing, and it is dead center on top. Very good deal. Now what we're going to do is we're going to begin doing wraps, just like this, to really get that in there, just because it is our last step. We're going to cut at an angle, just like that, and we're going to begin finishing our head. Just like this. And this is where you shouldn't be afraid to build up thread. At this point, you have got all your hair tied in, everything like that, so you don't have to worry about conservation of space, anything like that. You're going to want to get that head really tied in. For this pattern, you can actually use 140 denier as to make it stronger, so you can get really good tension on there. But I found that 70 denier works just as well. And just like that, we have a good looking head. We're not looking to make it as uniform as possible. However, I'm going to bring it back just a little bit more, just because I like a little bit of more of a head on there for this UV. Not that far back. There we go. Perfect. So we're going to bring this forward, and then you can do half hitch or you can do a whip finish over this. It does not matter. But what we're going to do is we're going to throw half hitch over there because it is the go-to for me. Just like that. Oops. Just like that. That's the way I was taught. Is you take your pointer finger, you're going to wrap it around like this. If you bring it straight up, around, just like that. So you're going to have something that looks about like that. And then you just place your finger over the hook, pull backwards with your bobbin, tighten it up, and just like we have there. And then what we're going to do to finish this off is we're actually going to grab our UV resin. Now you don't have to use UV resin, however I do prefer it for this pattern because with my other patterns I will use varnish, etc. But this one gives it a very nice look, and on top of that I can use both hard UV resin or thick UV resin, and I can use thinner UV resin. And what that'll do for me is I can actually take and I can coat this first layer with thin UV resin. There we go. And we can start kind of dabbing that on there with our applicator tip. You don't want to add too much because it'll run off. It'll just make a little bit of a mess. There we go. Slowly adding a little bit more. Moving it around. Moving it around just like that. Painting it on until we get a nice base. What I like to do is while I'm grabbing my UV light, I'll actually sit and spin my fly just to get it nice and even. Then I'll turn on my UV light and do a slow spin just like that. You're going to want to hold this for a couple seconds. It is set as of right now, however, we're just making sure that it is entirely set and that it is a very strong pattern. Because why make it tough when you can make it really mighty? Now we're going to use our thick UV resin. We're going to apply that on there, and this one won't move as much as the thin, so we can put a large globule there. And then what we can do is we can grab our bodkin, and as it's moving around a little bit, take and slowly push it around to where we want. Just like that. This is the part where I'll do is I'll take that thick UV resin, I'll bring it just back a little bit onto the bucktail, just a tiny bit. There we go. Just like that. Slow rotations. You don't have to do them as fast as the thin UV resin. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bring it back to the top like that, grab our bucktail, and then get it to the position we like, just like that. Gonna hit it with our UV light. Make sure you get all around, just like that. There we go. And then for our final step, as you can see, we have good hair wing on there. As for the final step, it's completely aesthetic now. What we're going to do is I'm going to go in, I'm going to lift this up with my scissor, just like that. As you can see, I picked it up, brought it out. And I'm going to trim a few low-hanging hairs that we have, just so that we have a more uniform fly pattern. There we go. We have our last one that's actually somewhat fluffed out. There we go. Perfect. There's our finished Mickey fin. Looking good, ready to fish. Good looking streamer, one of my favorites. If you did enjoy the video, please do subscribe, leave a like, and if you would like to leave a comment of what fly you would like to see next, please do so down below. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day.